Adrenaline physically shrinks your peripheral vision at 2:14 a.m. My pulse hit 150 BPM staring at the brass tag stamped with a storage unit number my wife swore didn't exist. Pause 2 seconds, it was hidden inside the silk lining of her vintage Burberry trench coat. The exact coat she told me she donated to Goodwill 3 years ago. Pause 2 seconds, I stood in our walk-in closet, the hum of the HVAC unit the only sound in the house, holding a piece of metal that weighed less than an ounce but carried the mass of a collapsing reality. Pause 2 seconds, my wife, Elena, was asleep in the master bedroom, 30 feet away. She was a senior logistics director for a global shipping firm. I was a commercial forensic accountant. My entire professional life was built on finding the things people tried to hide. Pause 2 seconds, yet, I had missed this. Pause 2 seconds, the unraveling didn't start with the coat. It started 6 weeks earlier, on a Tuesday, with a mundane reconciliation of our joint credit cards. Pause 2 seconds, I was categorizing expenses in a master spreadsheet when I noticed a recurring charge. $412, billed on the 14th of every month, to a company called CubeSmart, Facility 88. Pause 2 seconds, when I asked her about it over dinner, she didn't miss a beat. She sliced her chicken, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "Oh, that's the old staging furniture from the downtown condo. I forgot to cancel the autopay. I'll call them tomorrow." Pause 2 seconds, I checked the account the next day. The charge was still there. I checked it a month later. Still there. Pause 2 seconds, but it was the metadata on the PDF bank statement that caught my attention. The billing address for Facility 88 wasn't our old downtown condo. It was an industrial park in a suburb 40 miles north. A suburb Elena had no reason to visit. Pause 2 seconds, which brings me back to 2:14 a.m. Holding the brass tag. Pause 2 seconds, I didn't wake her. I didn't yell. I walked out to my home office, booted up my secure terminal, and pulled the property records for Facility 88. Pause 2 seconds, to get into that unit, I needed the lease agreement. I couldn't just ask the manager. So, at 8 a.m. the next morning, I drove to the county clerk's office and pulled a notarized power of attorney document we had drafted 5 years ago for a commercial real estate closing. Pause 2 seconds, it was still active. It granted me full legal authority to act on her behalf for any logistical or property management contracts. Pause 2 seconds, at 10:15 a.m., I walked into the leasing office of Facility 88. I handed the manager the notarized POA and my ID. He typed for 3 minutes, printed a single sheet of paper, and slid it across the counter. Pause 2 seconds, the lease wasn't in Elena's name. It was in the name of an LLC, Apex Horizon Holdings. But the authorized signatory, the person who physically signed the document in blue ink, was Elena. Pause 2 seconds, I took the master key the manager handed me and walked down the long, concrete corridor to Unit 414. Pause 2 seconds, the roll-up door rattled loudly as I pulled it up. The air inside smelled of ozone, dry dust, and expensive perfume. Pause 2 seconds, there was no staging furniture. There were no boxes of old clothes. Pause 2 seconds, the unit was virtually empty, save for a heavy-duty metal shelving unit in the dead center. On the middle shelf sat a maroon leather lockbox. Pause 2 seconds, I recognized it immediately. It was the lockbox her grandfather had given her, the one she claimed was in a safety deposit box at Chase. Pause 2 seconds, the latch wasn't locked. I flipped it open. Pause 2 seconds, inside, there were no family heirlooms. There was a stack of 12 cashier's checks. Pause 2 seconds, I counted them right there in the dust. Each check was for exactly $15,000. $180,000 in total. Pause 2 seconds, every single one was made out to Apex Horizon Holdings. And every single one was signed by Elena, dated on the first Friday of every month for the past year. Pause 2 seconds, she was systematically draining our joint savings, converting it to guaranteed funds, and funneling it into a shell company. Pause 2 seconds, I took high-resolution photos of every check, the lockbox, and the empty unit. I locked the door, returned the key, and drove home in total silence. Pause 2 seconds, that night, I ran a deep-dive corporate registry search on Apex Horizon Holdings. Pause 2 seconds, the LLC was formed in Delaware, but it was registered to operate in our state. I needed to know who the registered agent was. The person legally responsible for receiving documents on behalf of the company. Pause 2 seconds, I clicked on the agent's profile. The name loaded on the screen. Pause 2 seconds, it wasn't Elena. It wasn't a lawyer. It was a name I hadn't spoken in 10 years. A name that made the blood drain from my face. Pause 2 seconds, I will tell you exactly who it was, and what I found hidden beneath the false floor of that storage unit, right at the 13-minute mark. But first, we need to look at the timeline of how she built this trap. Pause 2 seconds, look closely at the date on this corporate filing document I pulled from the state database. Pause 2 seconds, it was notarized exactly 3 days before our wedding. Which red flag would you have caught first? The hidden checks, the Shell LLC, or the fact she formed it 3 days before walking down the aisle? Drop a 1, 2, or 3 in the comments right now. Pause 2 seconds, I needed to know where the rest of the money was going. The checks were just the intake. The outflow had to be documented somewhere. Pause 2 seconds, Elena was meticulous, but she was arrogant. She thought I'd only looked at joint accounts. She forgot I had set up the local network backup for her personal iPad. Pause 2 seconds, at 11:30 p.m., while she was in the shower, I accessed the hidden partition on her device's local backup. Pause 2 seconds, inside a folder disguised as work manifests, I found a printed email thread. It was a conversation between Elena and an offshore wealth management firm in the Cayman Islands. Pause 2 seconds, the email detailed the liquidation of physical assets. But it was the attachment that made my stomach turn. Pause 2 seconds, it was a wire transfer receipt. $42,000 sent to a Cayman Islands routing number, initiated from a bank account I didn't know she had. Pause 2 seconds, the sender name on the wire wasn't Elena. It was Apex Horizon Holdings. Pause 2 seconds, she wasn't just hiding money. She was building a completely separate financial identity, one that was entirely insulated from our marriage. Pause 2 seconds, but there's something I haven't told you yet. Pause 2 seconds, I didn't just find the money. I found out who she was planning to leave me for. And it wasn't a lover. Pause 2 seconds, to prove the conspiracy, I needed physical movement data. I needed to put her at the scene of the transfers. Pause 2 seconds, 2 days after finding the lockbox, I slipped a GPS tracker under the rear bumper of her Audi Q5. Pause 2 seconds, for a week, her movements were normal. Office, gym, grocery store, home. Pause 2 seconds, but on Thursday, at 3:14 p.m., the GPS pinged a location I didn't recognize. An upscale residential neighborhood in a town 2 hours away. Pause 2 seconds, she was there for exactly 47 minutes. Pause 2 seconds, I cross-referenced the address with the county property assessor's database. The house was owned by a trust. And the trustee of that trust was the registered agent of Apex Horizon Holdings. Pause 2 seconds, I needed audio. I needed her to say it out loud, so she couldn't gaslight me in front of a judge. Pause 2 seconds, I synced her car's Bluetooth to my phone and activated the dashcam's cabin audio recording feature. Pause 2 seconds, the next day, she took a phone call in the car while parked in our driveway. Pause 2 seconds, I sat in my office, wearing headphones, listening to the live feed. Pause 2 seconds, her voice was crisp, professional, and entirely devoid of the warmth she used with me. Pause 2 seconds, the final tranche clears on the 18th, she said. Once the surgery is done and the policy matures, we liquidate the house. I'll be in Buenos Aires by the 22nd. Pause. 2 seconds, surgery. Policy matures. Buenos Aires. Pause 2 seconds, the pieces slammed together with the force of a freight train. Pause 2 seconds, I had a routine spinal fusion surgery scheduled for the 17th. A procedure with a known, albeit small, risk of catastrophic complications. Pause 2 seconds, she wasn't just divorcing me. She was waiting for me to go under the knife. Pause 2 seconds, it was time to spring the trap. Pause 2 seconds, I booked a private room at the Marriott on Olive Street. Room 414. A subtle nod to the storage unit. Pause 2 seconds, she arrived at 8:05 p.m., wearing the silk blouse I bought her for our anniversary. She smiled, sat down, and ordered a glass of Pinot Noir. Pause 2 seconds, how are you feeling about tomorrow? She asked, reaching across the table to touch my hand. Pause 2 seconds, I didn't touch her back. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope. Pause 2 seconds, I'm feeling great, I said. But I think Apex Horizon Holdings is feeling even better. Pause 2 seconds, her hand stopped mid-air. The smile didn't fade, it just froze, turning into a mask of porcelain. Pause 2 seconds, I don't know what you're talking about, she said, her voice dropping an octave. Pause 2 seconds, I opened the envelope. I slid the photos of the maroon lockbox across the table. Then the cashier's checks. Then the corporate registry filing. Pause 2 seconds, you formed the LLC 3 days before our wedding, I said, keeping my voice entirely flat. You've been moving 15 grand a month. And you wired 42,000 to the Caymans. Pause 2 seconds, she looked at the photos. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She took a slow sip of her wine. Pause 2 seconds, you're overreacting, she said, setting the glass down. It's just a contingency plan. A financial firewall. You of all people should understand asset protection. Pause 2 seconds, asset protection doesn't require a one-way flight to Buenos Aires, I replied. Pause 2 seconds, that was the moment the mask finally cracked. Her jaw tightened. The warmth completely evaporated from the room. Pause 2 seconds, you went into my car, she whispered. Pause 2 seconds, I went into your storage unit, I corrected. And I found out who your registered agent is. Pause 2 seconds, this is the promise I made at the 7-minute mark. The registered agent of Apex Horizon Holdings wasn't a lawyer. It was my estranged older brother, Marcus. Pause 2 seconds, Marcus, who I hadn't spoken to since our father's funeral. Marcus, who was a disbarred attorney with a gambling debt. Pause 2 seconds, but that wasn't the worst part. Pause 2 seconds, when I was in Unit 414, I noticed the concrete floor near the shelving unit had a slight acoustic hollow when I stepped on it. I pried up the rubber matting. Pause 2 seconds, underneath was a biometric floor safe. It was unlocked. Inside, I found a burner phone, the Buenos Aires itinerary, and a thick legal document. Pause 2 seconds, it was a $10 million term life insurance policy on my life. Pause 2 seconds, the beneficiary wasn't Elena. It was Marcus. Pause 2 seconds, Elena and my brother had been siphoning my assets, planning to let me die on the operating table, and split a $10 million payout in South America. Pause 2 seconds, back in the Marriott room, Elena stood up. She grabbed her purse. Pause 2 seconds, you have no idea what you've just started, she said, her voice shaking with a cold, calculated rage. Marcus is going to bury you in litigation. You'll never see a dime of that money. Pause 2 seconds, I already filed the ex parte restraining orders on the assets at 4 p.m., I said to her, retreating back. And I filed a lease pendens on the trust property. It's over. Pause 2 seconds, she didn't look back. Pause 2 seconds, I thought that was the end of it. I thought I had outmaneuvered them. I went home, packed my bags, and moved into a hotel. Pause 2 seconds, the next morning, my surgery was cancelled. I spent the day with my legal team, freezing every joint account, revoking her power of attorney, and preparing for the war of my life. Pause 2 seconds, But at 9:45 p.m., I remembered the burner phone I found in the floor safe. I hadn't turned it on yet. Pause 2 seconds, I plugged it into a portable charger. The screen lit up. There was only one thread in the sent messages. Pause 2 seconds, I opened it. The last text was sent at 1:12 a.m., exactly 40 minutes after she walked out of the Marriott. Pause 2 seconds, it wasn't sent to Marcus. Pause 2 seconds, it was sent to a contact saved simply as counsel. Pause 2 seconds, I looked at the phone number. I knew it by heart. It was the direct cell phone number of my lead divorce attorney. The man I had hired to protect me. Pause 2 seconds, the text read, "He knows about the LLC. Initiate phase 2. The surgery is cancelled, so we used the car." Pause 2 seconds, I was holding the phone when my hands started shaking. Because the man I trusted to save my life was the one holding the knife.